We're into our work on a Monday. We're all razzed up. I'm not sure I brought the person to becalm the madding crowd. I might have brought the person to really stir it up. I can't wait for our debate around the MRO. David King on family duties today. Dermott Brereton, I'm thrilled to say, has stepped into the means test for Jamison. Dermott, welcome.
Good morning. I'm very honoured to be here. David and yourself do an absolutely wonderful job of this segment. And David loves his statistics. I like them when they can tell me something I don't know.
Yes.
Other than that, I'll trust my eyes.
We just want your eye today.
Okay.
We want the raw emotion of it.
Well, there you go. I loved the caller, Jarvis, from Carlton. He had a point, which I used to always say at board level. What's our core function, guys? To win football games. We can do so much in a social sense and their trimmings, their add-ons, but our core subject is to win football games. So let's never forget that.
All right. We usually start with a King's Gambit. It felt right to call this the Kids' Gambit this time. Give me an overall, just something that occurs to you.
It occurs to me that the top 7 are set. They're going nowhere on the ladder. We, from round 9 through to 23, 5 teams are playing for 8th position. So I'll go through from the top. The ladder, if you haven't seen it already since the weekend concluded, Collingwood first, Melbourne second, St Kilda third, the Brisbane Lions with a bullet 4th, Port Adelaide 5th, Geelong 6th, climbed way back up there real quick, and the Doggies, as long as there's a fit Bont, are 7th and I reckon are locked. Then you have 8th position, fighting for that, Carlton, Essendon, Adelaide, Sydney, and with a slimmer of a hope, Fremantle. I think the rest below that, Giants can have their moments. The Suns have not disappointed, and they can have their moments, but this head start they've given is going to be a little bit too much. So I think 7 is set, 5 will go into 1
5 into
somewhere.
1.
Yeah.
Sort of like the losing form of Essendon and Adelaide at the moment, as
Well,
silly as that sounds.
The last caller you had on, and this is going to be very painful to me, Essendon are doing things incredibly right. Scotty's got them playing with a verve and a want and a will that is something you want to bottle. Yeah, they were. You go to a game and halfway through a game, you look at a team, you say, yeah, they'll win. They should win. All things equating out, they'll win. And you look at the other team and say, yeah, it's going to be up. That's going to be tough for them to win. Essendon, the team which shouldn't win, almost should have. If it wasn't for an injury which imbalanced them, and it really caused some concern for them, and they still almost got. I know that Port Adelaide kicked poorly, but that's the game. That's the nature of the beast. Essendon were fantastic. There you go. I'm going to uncross my fingers. It's blasphemy.
All right, the Kids' Gambit gets us underway. 5 into 1 with the top 7 set. The big issue yesterday is the big issue. 71,000 on a miserable afternoon at the MCG, so the pure demonstration of the Collingwood army. The Magpies run down the Swans, who played a game of keepings off for 3 quarters, which was really intriguing, not terribly entertaining, but they were quarry for the Pies in the last quarter. The Swans are 3 and 5. They're in a really awkward spot. The roughing up of Nick Dacos, the booing of Buddy. That Sunday afternoon had a lot rolled into it.
It did, didn't it? It was compelling viewing, though. Yeah, on one side you've got the antagonist of little Tom Papp. He's the smallest antagonist, physical antagonist in the league. And then on the other side you've got the Magpie army. And yeah, I'm an old Collingwood supporter from years ago. Obviously, my love is with the Hawks these days. But you cannot help admire all things about Collingwood. And their supporters are rabid. They've got a swagger at the moment. And the world's a better place when Collingwood are a really good team. And right now, for me, I look at Richmond in 17, 19 and 20. They could close games. Hawthorn in 13, 14, 15. They could close out games. They just were great closing. Geelong before them, the 07 leading into the 2010 era. Brisbane, These teams could close games. So in more times than not, you'd get to somewhere inside the first 5-10 minutes of the last quarter, and the gap still hadn't been bridged by these teams, but you knew they'd come. You knew they'd close that gap, and more than likely, you knew they'd probably walk away with the win. For a team which doesn't have historical premiership success in that era, unlike those teams I've just mentioned, I think Collingwood are the best closing team I have seen in recent-ish to medium-term memory. They are extraordinary at closing out games. When we were watching that last night, I got off air and the show I was doing, and then went back and started watching. And we walk into Fox where there's umpteen televisions going, and somebody said, "Who wins?" And I said, "Well, Collingwood win. They close out." "Well, but Sydney are going so well." "Yeah, but Collingwood close. They slaughter teams for effort, running, intensity, high octane in the last quarter. So there's no better person to be than a Collingwood supporter after three-quarter time in the AFL at the moment. It's an amazing attribute to have, and the belief they have, and also on the flip side, the anti-belief the opposition have. They're coming for us. How do we do? When do we try and close it down? Do we have to keep scoring? Do we have to keep going forward? Do we have to keep it open? So Collingwood force you into this conundrum of where your game's at when you actually hold the lead.
What did you think of the way that Sydney played them? So they played keepings off. So I went back and had a quick look. Round 22, when the Swans beat them at the SCG, they had 227 uncontested possessions and 85 uncontested marks. But that ballooned out to 294 uncontested possessions and 120 uncontested marks. And they had the bulk of them by three-quarter time. I get the theory is don't put the ball in open play against Collingwood and deny them the chance to surge down the field. The chances of it working for four quarters, the one rider to it is if Sydney hadn't been so poor with their set shot kicking, they might have actually had a lead a la Essendon and Adelaide, but they never quite got that.
So there's so much that goes into a game of football, the pre-planning and the likes, but let's just dumb it down, simplify it. If the opposition doesn't have possession of the ball, they can't kick it through the goals.
Yeah.
So you deny them, the theory is you deny them the time to have ball in possession to kick goals. But what that does is, as people say, oh, look, you're taxing them by forcing them to chase around. You have to run and chase to make position. Run and lead to make position. So someone like, people used to ask us about the Hawthorn game, where the best kicking team we've seen. Who's the most important player? Well, Sam Mitchell gets it out. But the one when they're all shut down, who just keeps running and breaks it open, is Isaac Smith. If I was going to clamp somebody and playing against Hawthorn in that era, I clamp Isaac Smith because his ability to run endlessly would open up the first kick. Once you open up the first kick, their kicking ability could go thereafter. The thing is, if you want to play that game against Collingwood, you're taxing yourself as well, even though you're in possession. And by three-quarter time, if you check the little switcho gizmos in the back, they've run hard. Sydney have run hard to make space to receive. There's not a lot of petrol left in the tank. And Collingwood, they are a fantastic team when they don't have possession of the ball. And a lot of the time they get possession of the ball and they give you an equal chance to win it back by just hacking it forward. But they're all in. They are all chips in and they swarm to the next contest and they win that and then they hack it forward. I mean, if there's a kick on offer, you use it, but then they hack that forward and then they swarm to that contest and it is a relentless wave. I know we used to call it the orange tsunami, but it is a tsunami of players that just keep bodily forcing themselves at the ball and it keeps going forward and it's irresistible when some players go, I can't run anymore. Somehow Collingwood still find them and they still run forward. It's an exhausting game to play against. It's a game of belief. And the other thing that has to be credited is as much as you've trained them fitness-wise and the likes, and we talk about certain coaches who say, I don't need to talk to them before the game. There is still a place, especially for this style of game, motivation, a spiritual motivation from the bloke who sits above them, the coach and all the line coaches, but more likely the coach, who gives them that spiritual motivation emotionally to actually keep craving the win. And that cannot be underestimated.
What did you think of Sydney's targeted attack on Nick Dacos?
That's our sport. Sometimes it lends itself to that, and sometimes you get so good, the opposition will try something outside of ability to get you off your game. He still got 30 plus, didn't he? So, look, there is a bit of a belief on Nick Dacos. He's playing in the right era for his game. He might not have come off the ground and he's still coming off sore. He might not have come off the ground as in physically good nick in another era gone by. So there is that belief, but this is the right era for him to play. He's playing to his strengths. Collingwood are utilising him to his strengths. So I can understand it. Who do you reckon won that battle?
Well, Collingwood won the battle.
Yeah, but did the
interesting.
Collingwood Dacos possession win that battle?
He was less influential than he has been previously.
Yeah.
How much
only
of it owed to...
Only because we're judging him on the standards he's already set.
If he hadn't played a game, him. That's the
If he hadn't played such good football and he trotted out that game from yesterday as his first breakout game, we would be in glorifying it. It's that good, but he set such a high standard. Yeah. So I don't think it really hurt his game all that much. It's something let's be honest, and for somebody who loved the antagonising and the cut and thrust, I love to fight as much as the next idiot. But at the end of the day, you come off and go, got punched in the head a couple of times. Then I kind of wish that didn't happen. And you do say that, but in the moment you're up for it. I'm sure he comes off the ground and says, I wish that didn't happen, but it didn't really curtail a very good performance.
Yeah, owes less to the buffeting and more to the fact Mills was on him in the middle, which is sort of the ultimate compliment, isn't it? I've seen Mills do those jobs, and he's hard to beat.
Whether he's trying to rough him up or not, that the little bit of pushing sideways and that before the ball's bounced, that happens.
Let him know you're around.
Yeah.
Dermott Brereton is running the Monday means test today. So many big issues out of that day at the MCG. And just the last part of the big issue. So the Swans find themselves at 3 and 5. Where are they in the season? They're in your squeeze for the last place in the 8, which is not where they would have imagined coming into the season.
No, I think we saw them last year. They made a grand final a lot of times. History shows that a team that makes the grand final and gets belted, battles to get into the 8 the next season. If they're on a campaign and it's their second or third time in 4 years that they've made a grand final, well, they're hardened and they tend to come up and even win a premiership. But first time up, it's can be difficult for them. So how did we rate that? They, like a lot of teams at the moment, can ill afford injuries. Some teams are just, and we're trying to rate some teams and say that, they're not doing this. No, they just don't have the personnel that they want out there. Sydney are really hamstrung down back. I would say the most important player from defensive side of the centre circle is Dane Rampy. He's not there. He can't guide them. I mean, Horse has even got him on the bench calling shots. He sees the game that well. So they will struggle with that. The other thing is their wild card up forward, Lance Franklin, has won games off his own boot in 20 minutes for years now. I think the moments of Lance's brilliance to swing a game, I don't think we're going to see them anymore. I love him. He's my favourite player. But I don't think we're going to see that anymore.
So Rob sent through this snap judgments, which gives us the pressure index, Dermott. Carlton players are doing exactly what they are told to do, but the coaching staff don't have the right mix in the right positions or the right game plan. Voss, as stubborn as Teague, he has a month. He has a month!
Or what? Ross isn't coming to the footy anymore, or what happens after a month? No. He's safe.
So this is really pressurised at Carlton. That was always the risk. They've got this sequence of trials. There are 6 of them. And if the first one went badly, the risk of self-immolation, of that negative momentum swallowing them up, I think this is something to fight through this week ahead of the Bulldogs on Saturday night.
Yeah. You get things right, you get things wrong. You make your forecast. You're a football club and you're a football department. And it's why you have a staff in there of half a dozen, because they make, I mean, the coach has the overriding say, but they all have they reach a consensus and they go with it. And that's their belief as the body. That's why sometimes you listen to coaches after a game and they're a little wishy-washy on something because they might have got rolled by 5 staff members on, do we play this guy, don't we? There would have been conjecture on Matthew Kennedy. So if you do your crystal balling before a game and you say, it can't really happen because he's such a beast. But if somebody takes Cripper out of the game, who's our major ball winner? Is it Walsh? Is it Hewitt? Hewitt's like a run with start position is the backhand of the right shoulder of his opponent. And then he plays off from there and does a fine job of it. But is he a beast at winning it? Walsh can win clearance, but he's not really pound the body in, win the ball, and take it to the outside. He's sort of thereabouts. Yeah, he's a very good player, but he's not Cripps who just muscles his way over the ball. But if, in the worst case scenario, somebody takes him out of the game and, heaven forbid, somehow they get the ball and he is not powerless, but he doesn't stop that, what do we do about that? Who's your beast that you go in there with? If you got a second beast, well, you do, but you've made him your sub. Now, is he as good a player as Cripps? No, but he's plan B if you are getting beaten in that area. So Cripps can play forward. He's not the most reliable kick, but just tell me, if they had have thrown him forward and Kennedy was given that sole responsibility, does Dunkley go with Cripps? Then you throw it onto them and they make a decision. So that's little coach's box syndromes. The one thing I was disappointed with Carlton was it was a forward half pressure game. Whoever had the ball in their forward half got repeat entries, got repeat shots. And that's what Brisbane did. Their pressure by their little fellows and their tackling gave them repeat shots at goal. So it was all important. Field position was the most important thing in the first half. And even though it was only 10 points at half time, Carlton had been outplayed. And they were outplayed when Brisbane kicked the ball in, they could find a target. And Carlton were gridded out in their set zone formation and what we call teasing distance. I dare you to kick it to him because I'm Cyril Rioli. I can reach that and spoil. But they didn't have the closing speed. And that mark was taken. So then the heat's off. Then they take a look further afield and the grid's out again. And then they hit another target and the heat's off then. And then again and again. And then at some stage they go, right, launch. We can kick it over the centre of the field. The game style changes. It's in our forward half now. We get to do the locking in. And Carlton couldn't do the same in return. So for me, the coaching strategy that Carlton's box got beaten on was how to stop the advancement of the slow static kick mark, and the same again and again until they could go past the centre, because that game was a forward half game when they were being gapped. I thought that was wrong. The other thing you'd look at with Carlton is they've got 2 key forwards. One is great size, great talent, great understanding of the game and reads it very well, and that's Curnow. The other is humongous size, great talent. That's it.
Yep.
Doesn't read the game. There's times when, if I can just tell you my theory on playing key forward, it's all very well to be marked on the metrics of, he's kicked 6, he's kicked 4, what a service, he's averaging 3.5. That's great because we want to get the ball through the goals. The number one thing you can give your team as the key forward is every time a backman is under heat, under pressure, and he takes 2 steps and looks up, he wants the ball 55 metres down the line. He wants a forward representing in a contest, kick it to me, I'll fight the fight. Just hoik it, get it out, I'll give you respite. I felt for that kid Hollins. What we saw on TV when he came out of the hard back pocket and he stopped and tread water, and he got gobbled up in a tackle. That was because he looked up and there was an opposition player standing 45 metres down the line. The next Carlton player was Harry Mackay, 50 metres behind him with his opponent. So what Harry has to do in that situation is say, all right, I've turned from goal kicker into team service. I have to service my back line. Oh, look at that bloke. He's ready to cut that off. I've got to halve the distance. So when the ball's in flight, I can reach that bloke. I think it was Kadeen Coleman who was sitting out there. I can reach that and fight the fight. And a great win for me is not a win. It's a 0-0 draw. I fight the fight and I push it over the boundary. Then they all move up, they shuffle up, and I run back into the forward line and I'm a target again. But that kid got crucified because he just tread water at the time because there was no forward offering him the target that he so desperately wanted. Now, that's an understanding of your position in the moment, what you are. You go from goal kicker to I service the team. I service the back line.
All right, so let me ask you, out of those failings, the two sort of big picture questions. The first being, should Carlton be better than they appear to be in 2023, in your opinion?
I think that's a yes.
Yep.
Yes, they should.
And are they playing in a manner that actually suits the assets that they've got?
No, they're not. But it's rectifiable.
Yep.
It is rectifiable. Well, first of all, you have to have that. Whoever the defensive coach is to stop ball movement. It was a really easy win for Brisbane to advance the ball in its static play. If somebody gets on a roll, they kick a great kick, it goes through the middle, you get played. That happens to every team. The bottom teams can do that on occasion. The top teams do it more regularly. That's football. You can be the best team in the comp, but you still get goals kicked against you. Things like that happen. But when you have a chance to set up and you have a considered moment in time to stop the advancement of the ball, that's what Carlton need to be working on because they can't do it at the moment. If they can do that, they're probably level pegging at least at halftime. The advantage they have with those two key forwards is huge. And they're not taking full advantage of it. They cannibalise some opportunities between the two of them, and that can happen when you have two willing beasts who both see the ball. Aaron Norton, I think young Jamari Ugle-Hagan has got the most difficult task in football because everything that comes forward to the centre, Aaron Norton thinks is his. There's no, I'll play this layer. You sit the layer behind me. If I move up to this wing, you cantilever and go to the other if it retreats and comes out the other side. No, Aaron Norton's just all in on anything that comes into his area. So it's a difficult place to be. So what happens, a couple of times Charlie just tracks the ball and he flew against Harry. What they have to do is have that really good understanding. There's been moments they've had it, but you have to have it every time. The most difficult play I ever had to commit to was when I run myself out of steam and I said, Coach, I need to go to the forward pocket and have a 7-minute breather. Playing next to Dunstall was the most difficult time you'll ever have because you can't cut across his leading areas because he's so bloody good at it, and you've still got to be dangerous. Otherwise, your man goes off and double teams him. So you've got to be dangerous within a confined area. So it's changed a little bit from that because I think Harry and Charlie can play what I would call layers. One can sort the area 45 to 70 metres out from goal, and the other can, stay that 45 to goal area. And if the ball changes direction quickly, what I would call the cantilever, one runs back to the goal square who's up further, and then the goal square player comes up to the half forward line if it comes out the other way quickly. So they have to develop that understanding.
The pressure index, Michael Voss and the Blues after round 8. All right, let's have our debate, shall we?
Yeah.
The man who would defend Attila the Hun.
Again?
I'm not sure I anticipate winning this debate. The debate for Syfe, smarter investing backed by the pros. Download Syfe. Is Jacob Van Rooyen's action worthy of suspension?
the era would say it probably is going to be suspended. It comes back to I'm still a person who believes intent plays a massive role in what a suspension outcome delivers. That boy, to me, you're allowed to take your eyes off the ball because the one thing he's got to judge is Ballard's hands. Where's his hands going? So he makes a beeline for Ballard. He can't look over his head and run quick enough to get there. So he has to look at the man. And there's nothing illegal. There's nothing that you cannot hand me a rule book and say this will be penalised for looking at the man. It's a giveaway telltale sign for ruck and the like. But so he looks at that. He looks where the hands are. His fist goes incredibly close. The spoiling fist goes incredibly close to the hands to spoil. And the body in the upper arm, shoulder area collects the head. I actually thought it was a twisted neck.
Yeah, so it is.
the time.
So I think there's a couple of misnomers in the debate at the moment. One is this is not rough conduct, it's striking, which is there's a world of difference in this scenario between rough conduct and striking. And the second is this is not head trauma. This will be a neck injury, and that's why it's high rather than severe. But equally is Melbourne won't be arguing high down to medium. They will simply be pleading not guilty. So it goes to what is Van Rooyen's intention? Because it only has to be careless. So it's either accidental, incidental, or careless. Careless gets you a suspension. So in all the conversation I've heard so far, I still think this is the truest thing I've heard by accident. Stevie J was on the Sunday Footy Show yesterday and he summarised it like this.
I think he definitely went into that contest thinking I'm going to make him earn it. So he was never going to win it, maybe to disrupt the footy, but he definitely thought I'm charging at him and I'm going to get some body on him.
There's a huge difference between I'm going to make him earn it and I'm going to spoil this football.
Haven't heard that for a long time. I remember make him earn it to
I
Peter
wouldn't want
Foster.
Stevie J defending me.
I made Peter Foster earn it and he punched me in the back of the head 120 times over the next 6 years.
So do you think Van Rooyen was making a legitimate effort to spoil the footy or do you think he was going in to make Ballard earn it?
What we do when we coach players, we say if you can't strike the ball, you can take the body in a legal action, and that's a considered spoiling tactic. It's not reportable. It doesn't have to be pernicious. It's a tactic. In case you somehow slightly miss the ball, you take the body, and it's a for want of a better term, it's a body spoil. But I 100% believe that young lad wanted to spoil the ball, and that was his intent. You're running at the player. He's not going to make it in time unless he looks at the player. And that's what gives it a little bit of a nastier look that he's looking at him. But my belief is, and I've hitched my trailer to nobody in the dog in this fight. I honestly think that boy wanted to spoil the ball. Did he want to make him earn it? Inverted commas. I think he probably thought, I can body spoil. That's the way we've been taught. Nothing looks worse than a spoil that doesn't take anything. And the coach will single you out for it. Doesn't mean you have tried to take him out and hurt him. It's just the way we spoil. But I do believe he wanted a good strike on the ball.
So there are wild extrapolations out of this one. Will it?
Yep.
If the 2-match suspension stands tomorrow night, will it shake your faith in the game?
It verifies that we're into a different era of adjudication.
Yep.
Wildly. It now shows, I know Michael Christian and I've played footy with Crizzo and I'm pretty good friends with Crizzo, ripping bloke. And if you had have told Michael Christian he would be putting this out on report and giving it 2 weeks, 5 years ago, he'd burst into laughter. So this is, to me, this is a higher directive of the way the powers that be want the game to be perceived, viewed as it's played.
So what to do with Junior Rioli? This is such he's going to get the the suspension. He's going to get the 3-week suspension because he concussed Ridley. Now,
The damning
whatever
fact
he
is-
meant to do,
yeah.
I don't know, and it didn't. But he left him with concussion.
Yeah.
And that's going to see him sent straight to the tribunal and serving 3 weeks.
The damning evidence here is it wasn't in play. You can say the old Barry Hall on Moose Maguire, we were in play. No, 100 metres off the ball is not in play. Now, were they motioning towards the footy? Is that in play? Not really. And he ran away from play to try and put a block on, jumped, and so he's out of play and he's concussed a player. That, was it accidental? I'm sure it was accidental, the eventual outcome. But it's his action that he didn't have to do, didn't have to commit to, that saw a player concussed, that had massive ramifications for the fortunes of that team thereafter.
Yeah, you get no restorative justice for Essendon in this
that is true.
scenario.
Yeah.
Ridley's absence is profound in the way the game unfolds, and
Yep.
it's totally Rioli's responsibility.
Yeah. And he actually played a really good game,
Yeah.
Junior.
Yep.
Yeah.
You want to see Hawthorn challenge the Tyler Brockman dangerous tackle on this is the creep of where we sort of understand the crackdown to be, and then as it moves further and further.
So the first thing I say, and this is, he's a Hawthorn player, and some people will text and say, yeah, protecting Hawthorn. No, I want to see what happens. And that being, the creep has been, the first time I saw a slam tackle really scrutinised was Big Shane Mumford in a Sydney Swans jumper on Gary Ablett Jr. at a boundary line throw-in down at Geelong. And he slam tackled him, caught him in, pinned both arms, slam tackled him, and it really shook Gary. Now, that was scrutinised. I can't remember if he got weeks, but it was really scrutinised. Thereafter, we've come into head injury from slam tackles will be penalised. Then it's morphed to if you pin both arms, understandably so, you're hot. If you pin one arm, we are saying that player is defenceless to brace his fall. Brockman grabbed 2 handfuls of jumper, and with the momentum of his opponent going forward, he swung him, circular swung him. He did not pin any arm. This is the first so-called dangerous tackle, swing tackle, that no arm has been pinned. So both arms are still capable of protecting the tackled player. That is worth exploring for the competition. And whatever the outcome is, it will be the landmark case. Oh, yeah, but Brockman got off because both arms, was explained to us, were free to brace the call. Brockman got suspended because it didn't matter that both arms were free. It will be a good test case.
So I'd be interested to. I think this is worth testing. So the excessive rotation. So there's a few different layers to it, and excessive rotation is one of them. I wonder if that's where this fell.
And that one, great that you bring that up. Sorry, I let that slide. It's great that you bring that up because anybody who's tackled somebody on the run knows that you cannot stop them unless you turn them in that moment. So it's 2 arms, tackle the upper body, pin, and you're going to spin. Momentum is going to make you spin anyway, and you're in trouble because you've pinned him, and the momentum has made you spin, and you probably, if you pin an arm, his head goes in the ground. You're done.
Yep.
So I think he almost cautiously thought that through, grabbed the arms, the momentum still swung him, he went through, and if you look at that, he lets go of that grab of the jumper as he goes to ground, saying, well, this can't be a slam tackle because I've let him go, which we also saw somebody do that. I forget who it was, just off the top of my head. There's a few things that were weird. Pendlebury getting tackled late in the game yesterday, and the Sydney Swans player, and he wasn't making a real attempt, on the boundary line in front of the old member stand, the Sydney Swans player let him go, and he dropped to the ground and then had to handball the ball forward.
That's right. Yeah,
he let him go to show the umpire it wasn't
Yeah.
a real attempt. Clever by Pendlebury, clever by the Sydney Swans game, and made a mockery of what we give in terms of how we adjudicate legitimate attempt to get rid of the ball. I'm getting off the subject. So Brockman's What are his options? If he can't tackle, just the jumper and momentum takes him around, as it naturally does Isaac Newton should be on the defence team of this one with the force. What are his options? The last option he will have is if somebody from the AFL says, well, he has a duty of care not to sling him. The only option then is not tackle. Is that what we want our game to look like?
No, we don't.
So you have to tackle
to
hold the ball.
Yeah, what's reasonable in the circumstances. That's what comes into there. So the debate is for Syfe, DIY, investing, not your thing. Don't worry. Syfe has you covered with ready-made diversified orders. I think it'll be a really interesting night at the Tribunal tomorrow night. I suspect there's 2 or 3 or 4 that go, and they'll all be good. Extra marks for the use of pernicious. That's coming through. I enjoyed that immensely. The best bits. I thought Marcus Bontempelli and Tom Green, who ended up playing on each other in the second half, which was a bit of a treat. We had Dangerfield versus Dawson for a half down in Geelong, which was compelling. And then we had Bontempelli, who was totally off the chain, and Green goes to him. And I reckon Green in that second half announces himself as what we can see coming and is just about there.
Tom Green's the genuine article. I mean, if Tom Green doesn't get recruited by the Giants, if he's at another club, the Giants have still got Taranto and Hopper. You know, they look at their salary cap and think, we need to pair something off. We got 3 of the same player. Let's keep the best. Tom Green, I truly believe Tom Green will win a Brownlow.
Yep.
He's that good. Bontempelli right now, he's my numero uno in the comp. He is the best midfielder in the comp. Not only can he get it done, he takes the ball away from centre bounce clearance. He can be an totally inside clearance player, or he can be that extra periphery clearance player where on the satellite orbs around the sun, he's Pluto. You know, he's way out there, and he can run away with the ball and kick it beautifully. He also can go into defence, take a towering mark. And I think he's probably the best midfielder at the moment. When there are big guys everywhere in the forward line, he'll go down there, he'll drift in there and take a towering mark amongst them. So he can do it at all areas of the ground, and the most important for the service that he provides to his team. He's my best at the moment. Can I give him my best individual moment?
Go on. I know what this is too. You haven't told me, but I know.
Dylan Shield.
Yeah, I knew you would say
He had
that.
a couple of ordinary moments, Dills, but when he took the ball and body blocked into Connor Rosie, and Rosie went backwards at 100 miles an hour, it was like a shirt front, but he got him on the chest. Actually, what would have happened? Because Dylan had the ball when he made contact with Rosie. If he got him in the head, what happens?
He'd be sitting.
You reckon?
So you want to get it right.
Oh, absolutely.
There's still a place in the game for that, enshrined.
Yep.
As long as you do it right.
Yeah. It was majestic. It was glorious. It was robust. So if you didn't see it, the ball was up for grabs. It was in between Dylan Shield and Connor Rosie, slightly favouring Shields to get there a half second before, and it bounced up to waist height. And Shields took it and continued on the path and put the big shoulder body block into Rosie, and he went backwards at 100 miles an hour and lay there assessing whether he was injured or not, and Dills ran off. At the time I got it wrong, the call. I said, that's what's great about our game. That's not wrong. I said, it's a real man's game. I'm sorry, the women play just as tough, all right, so let me clean that one up. But I loved everything about it. It was just screamed robust, physical, the way we want our game to be played. It was well adjudicated as well. It would have been easy to see somebody go down
too rough.
Yeah. You're too big and too strong and too rough for that. But I loved that moment.
And the worst bit was the Jai Culley knee injury, the charcoal chicken kid. So we followed his journey from last year. He was really forging his way as a forward for West Coast. It plays on every layer, doesn't it? The Eagles can't afford any more of these injuries. And we feel like we've got a stake in a young lad who's carrying number 49 and trying to forge his way. And that was wretched.
The family would be distraught. The club would be so upset and disappointed for the lad who's come around the hard way. And then I look at Adam Simpson and I think there's stages you go through as a coach. And his injury toll right at the moment is not disappointment. His injury toll is, I'm probably just going to have to laugh these days now because it's just so against us.
Yeah, if you don't laugh, you cry. Well, he was almost in the crying
Tears.
stage.
You seem a little bit more flat.
Oh, well, one of my players might have just done his knee, so I'm not sure how you'd feel about that, but that's disappointing. So the game in itself, we thought we had opportunities this week to perform better, but we've got to keep moving forward. But yeah, one of our players has gone down, so apologies if I'm not jumping out of my skin.
It sits heavily, quite rightly, on West Coast at the moment. We might do the curiosity of Gold Coast, who in defeat won a lot of plaudits. Can you have your landmark coming-of-age performance in defeat?
Yes, because sometimes you hate my analogy sometimes, but Alan Jeans used to say, well, he said to us once, he said, one of the worst things you get as a copper is when you put a bloke up against a wall and you give him a good one and he just smiles back at you. So they got a good one. They copped a good one, Brisbane, and they kept coming back. So I liked it. A couple of the things, misnomers in the statistics there, inside 50s, they only went 45 times the Suns, and they lost the game by 5 points. Rowell and Anderson, 19 or 21, odd number it was from memory, clearances between the two of them. That's extraordinary against a Melbourne team, which we know is in the premiership window and probably the best personnel of teams that they put out there each week, each team puts out. I thought it was a fantastic effort, a really good effort. Did it get distorted a little in the last quarter? 2 goals, 1 to 2 goals, 6. Had they kicked straight, it might have been a fair margin. But I'm just getting ready to go on there and watch my game. And I'd watched that one all the way through until the last couple of minutes, and they were calling, come in, get in your seat. And I was going, I have to watch this. It was gripping the way that they held it out. They just couldn't quite get the job done. But Melbourne are a very good team. I agree with Stewie. They will get belief out of that. They were fantastic, and they still lack a few things in terms of personnel and the like. And once again, not to the extent it hurt Essendon, but Ballard going down disrupted their flow, their balance as a team.
What do you want to say about Noah Anderson and his progression?
So the way people make up lists, they say top 10s and the likes. I say top 18. So you're picking one player from each club in, say, midfields. Is such and such in the best 18 in the comp? Is Anderson in the best 18 midfielders in the comp? I reckon he's there.
Yep.
His efforts were extraordinary on the weekend. That was once in the third quarter, travelling to the left-hand side of the screen. His ability on the back flank in the stoppage to take the ball, and there were players forward of him from in a Melbourne jumper that he got through, and then he sensed he got the break and thought, no, I'm not kicking under pressure like 99 players out of 100 will. I'll take the ground, and then forcefully runs his full 15 as well and takes more ground. So he gets over the traffic and gets into a dangerous spot. The knowledge of that young man, can't believe Ando didn't play 2 more games for the Hawks, but yeah, he's a very, very good player. And to do it against the Oliver, Petrarca, that Melbourne midfield, exceptional.
Top 18s, just don't stray to top 150s. Damn, that's where you can find trouble. My open question is, what is the form worth versus West Coast, North and Hawthorn? So did Freo solve a few of their issues? Luke Jackson was excellent. Did Richmond solve a few of their issues, run a few blokes back into form? Or is it what we got the week before, is just put an asterisk over these live kills?
Well done on Freo. They got the job done. Hawthorn, that's as bad a display. It probably, 59 points, a 10-goal-ish. They made a lot of errors. A little bit Carlton-like. They allowed Fremantle to advance the ball in static play, static kicks without really halting that at any stage, and they shot themselves in the foot. There is a want under Sam to be expressive, expansive, take risks, And if there's ever a time to actually be hurt by risk and learn from it, it's now while you've got a bit of grace. Some of their attempted targets, not the actual kick execution, but going for those targets is like, yeah, that's probably not a league football choice. You could see Fremantle, they crept out onto the ground. It looked like they ran out, and yeah, we were a league team, but they're a little bit hunched shoulders. Oh, people are looking at us. And then as they started kicking a few goals, the shoulders came back and they were upright and they were strutting around. Let's hope for their sake that parlays into a usual appearance because they felt good about themselves. I tell you what, we talk about the theatre of the booing at the MCG. How good was the theatre of having one of the games great? He's the best sub we've ever had, Nat Fyfe.
Nat Fyfe.
The theatre of Nat Fyfe. When he was warming up on the bench, there were more people watching the bench cheering the boundary line than there was watching the ball in play. It was great theatre. It was good to see him back out there.
Got a theory on how best he's utilised? So presumably he now plays a full game next week.
Yep.
Where are you using him?
If you start as a forward, you have to get used to the ball's coming at me. I have to meet the ball. You have to have a one-wood strategy of always winning the ball that way. Nathan Fyfe isn't that player. I don't think he has the one wood of, I know how to get separation on my man, whether it's turn around, quick bench press into his chest and then sprint lead, or whether it is lose him in the forward line traffic and hover and take a mark, or crumb front and centre. We saw him take a beautiful crumb where Matthew Pavlich pointed out, he recognised the spoiling fist where it was going, and he went there before it hit the fist. That's midfield craft that got him a goal. That's not enough to base a full-time forward career on. I think he still needs his moments in the midfield where he then drifts forward, because there's this misnomer in AFL football, and it's always been around, even for the great Wayne Carey. When Carey can't run at centre-half forward, he'll go to full forward and kick 80 a year. Didn't happen.
Yep.
Gary Ablett Jr., when he finishes in the midfield, he'll go to the forward pocket and he'll kick 80 goals. Didn't happen. There's only one player in the history of our game when they've said, go forward, change your game, who has been a regular goal kicker, and that's the bloke we say is the best player of all time, Lee Matthews. No one else has done it. So I don't think he has that wild, explosive, off-the-mark explosion. He's explosive when he hammers into blokes at stoppage and the likes, but I don't think he has that forward explosive technique to get off his man. He's more the midfield beast who goes, I'm here, beat me, bang, I'll give it back to you. And then he can float through the air and take a high mark.
Give me just a 30-second. Did Richmond get a few things out of that, or do we wait for Friday night?
We got to wait. I mean, they're a team, and I feel for the Richmond supporters because they got that proved on the weekend, recruiting those two boys. It proved to me that was the right thing. I had it written down. Hopper and Taranto, 38 contested possessions between them, 60-something possessions between them, but 38 contested? Do you want to leave that all to Prestia to get those? How can you debate that wasn't the right decision to get them? But they're bereft at either end. They came into this season thinking, we've got both ends of the ground covered. They haven't been there, so we need more. We need to see a bit more.
Righto. See, there are no rules. You can have your own settings.
Yeah.
4, I will have to move you through, though. 4?
I've gone for, you mightn't like this, Brisbane. They've beaten Collingwood, Bulldogs, Carlton and Melbourne. Some pretty good scalps in there. I just want to see those big forwards play forward games, big power forward games against real good opposition.
Right, I've got Geelong at 4. 3?
I've got the Cats at 3 with Dangerfield. They've beaten some mid-tier teams so far, but they're stringing them together.
I've got Melbourne at 3 because I've promoted Brisbane to 2, which is as high as they've been in my seedings.
Right.
Who have
Okay,
you got at
I've
2?
got 2. I've got the Magpies doing nothing wrong at the moment.
So they're not at 1?
No.
Who's at 1?
Well, I still like the personnel Melbourne put out there, although the best team they've played is Brisbane and they lost to them. But for what they can put out there and what we know they're capable of, it's Melbourne.
Collingwood at 1 for me. Dermott Brereton, thank you so much
Loved
for
it.
doing the means test.
Thank you.